Hello, April. Thank you so much for meeting with me this afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you, Dr. Chris. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining me. So, April is going to share a little bit about her experience using the spiritual vision board process and being a member of the second cohort of Spiritual Vision Board Academy. April, can you share with me some of the things that went well for you as a member of Spiritual Vision Board Academy? What would you like to share with others that you were really happy and pleased about?
I think vision boarding in itself is not a new thing. People have done vision boarding, it's done. However, when you match that up with the spiritual aspects, it makes it a little bit different. I'm not what I would consider a very religious person, though I do consider myself a somewhat spiritual person, right? So I think it's two different things. For me, it's two different things. And the spiritual vision boarding just gave me an opportunity to focus on something outside of myself and my own understanding, so to speak. Right. So it just made it a little bit more personal, but the whole aspect to me of the spiritual vision boarding also seeped into other areas, right? So it wasn't just with the the goals, the things that I was focusing on, which was for this particular part was the podcast. Mm, it expanded into other things. So some of the other goals that I said, well, I'm not going to necessarily focus on those for the spiritual vision board, but it was in my mind still. And so I actually, prayed more. I was silent more, retrospective more. So, not only did it help me with the thing that I was focused on, but I felt like it expanded into other areas that I was not necessarily anticipating or expecting for it to. But, it did, and I love the vision board that I created. So when I do come to my PC, the colors and the women that I have that I look at, it to me is such a powerful thing, a powerful reminder every time I look at it. I think it was multi-purpose, though I had no idea that it was going to be multi-purpose for me. But yeah, it did help other areas of my life besides what I was focused on for the spiritual vision board.
So, you're sharing that learning the different aspects of what makes a spiritual vision board, and the process itself. So, for example, when we think about act, believe, receive, there's different components that go along with each one of those steps. So with asking, you're asking with intention. So maybe in the other parts of your life, you have learned to be more intentional. I heard you speak about meditating and focusing and praying. So that kind of goes along with step number two, believe. So now you pray more, you meditate more, and you're able to give more focus and attention to the things that you want to manifest. That's not necessarily a goal. Am I hearing you correctly? Am I
Yeah, I would say that that's a good summary of my experience because I had other things that I wanted to use the spiritual vision board process for, but the podcast that I wanted to work on was the first thing. So I got to get that out the way. I can't put anything else into the pipeline until I get that one done. But I would say that, you know, unlike, some things that you might think that you want to do, and then, it's even though I've kind of come across some technical difficulties, the drive and the determination and the desire to still create the podcast that I want to create is still there. I really feel like it's going to be very helpful for other people which makes it, more important for me to get out there because I'm not doing the podcast because I'm trying to monetize it. Or, if that happens, it happens, but it's not my goal. My goal is to really get the topics, and I have a long list of topics, long list. So I'm really anxious to get started and get at least the first one totally complete so I could work on the others. But again, the whole process in itself, because it is structured in the way that it's structured, because from what I know of vision boarding, people just go and cut out things and they just make this thing and they put it somewhere where they see it and that's it. I don't know what else they do, but that's what I have seen in the past. So this really has a whole process behind it that's very purposeful. And each part, to me, kind of makes you really think about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and kind of gives more substance to the whole vision boarding process. And if you happen to be religious, well, then perfect. This is really up your alley, quite frankly. If you are, then I think, you're definitely going to get, a lot from it because it's just going to ride along with your beliefs that you happen to have already. So,
But I like how you mentioned early on that, you're more spiritual, uh,
yes.
than it is religious. And when we think about the spiritual vision board, it does help us to tap into our innermost self so that we're allowing this higher power, whatever it is that you believe in. If you're a religious person or if you're not a religious person, you're still thinking, there is the higher power and a higher purpose. There is a spiritual process that's connecting me to the goals that I want to achieve. And that's pretty much in a nutshell what the spiritual vision board process is. So you can be religious, you can be a Christian, you can be a non-believer, but the idea is you're allowing this inner spirituality to come out and guide you intentionally and on purpose.
Yes. I would agree with that. Agree.
So you've talked about prioritizing your goals, and the priority is this podcast. So can you share just a little bit, without spoiling it, before you actually release, but can you share a little bit about how you were able to manifest and set up this podcast that you would like to develop?
Mm, Well, I, I think I've had, just like many people, a lot of life experiences. And I also believe that we're unique, but we're not as unique as we like to think we are. Because if you're going through something or have been through something, there's someone else who has gone through, is going through, or will go through some of the experiences that you had. They might be different people, but there are definite similarities that I think that people can uh, capitalize on. That your experience can help if they get to that point or they're going through something. And a lot of my topics really are things that people definitely have gone through, will go through, will, without a doubt. Mm, or they're going through right now, and to hear it and go, sometimes just knowing that you're not alone in something, if it's a real deep type thing, it doesn't change what's happening, but it to me, it gives some comfort. So, I had an experience with taking care of my mother-in-law who had dementia, and it was difficult. I didn't know anything about dementia, nothing. I've heard the word before, but until you actually live with someone who has it, you really don't know what it is. And I joined a support group. So here we are. We'll all have our experiences. We're all going through it, but I look forward to that group every single week. I mean, I was just like, I couldn't wait to go. And it didn't change anything at home, but it made me feel better. I got to talk, no judgment. I listened to other people's things. So the thing with the podcast is I just really feel a calling to share the things that I have experienced, because I used to say, gee, I wish that someone had told me. I wish someone had shared that with me. Sometimes you talk to people and then they go, oh, yeah, I'm going through that. But it's like that no one ever talks about some of the topics that I want to speak about. People just don't talk about it, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. So I just really feel that there is a need for that. And there are various topics. It's not just one thing, that is for sure. It's not concentrated to one area, and the subjects vary. But I'm getting to share what I've learned. And to me, I think that that is a great thing. Not that I'm an expert on anything. I can only share my experience and what I did and how I handled it. And, and I hope that it just helps somebody else. So I believe that, that is just something that I'm supposed to do, and and that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're being called, or that somehow this has become your purpose throughout your life journey to do something that's bigger than you so that you can help other people who have experienced something similar. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, I think when I was younger, I thought that I wanted to be a teacher for years. And then one day I said, no, I don't want to be a teacher. Can you? However, when I think about what it is I'm doing, maybe it's the method in which I teach. So this is not directly, like, I'm not in a classroom. I'm not doing a virtual classroom. However, there's a certain amount of teaching that would be going on in me sharing my story. So I think that it's like, okay, no, it's not that way. It's going to be this way. So it's still kind of the same thing. It's not exactly, but very similar. And so I feel like this is more of a fit than what it is I thought I wanted to do for many, many years. This seems like this is the right path for me.
Without giving too much away, you mentioned Alzheimer's, which quite a few people have experienced, maybe a family member or a friend, or have heard of someone who is experiencing that. What are some of the other topics, and what can we expect to hear on April's podcast?
Whoa. Women are talking about perimenopause and menopause now. Even though it's been happening to us forever, it's not a thing, but it's happened, but now we're really starting to talk about it, and to talk about, things that we can do, before, you know, we felt like we were just powerless, and you just, whatever it is, everyone's experience is different. Some have more of this, less of that, more of this. So one of the things, though, that I actually wanted to talk about was vaginal dryness, believe it or not. I know it's a weird topic, but when I talk to other women, they go, oh, yeah, and I go, you don't have to suffer. I mean, you don't have to suffer. I said, because it's not something that, one day you wake up and then you just have this issue. It is a very gradual thing that you don't realize that's happening. And then it has taken over your life, and you just think, oh man, it's just got to be like this. Such a simple thing, but they might talk about it. But when I do talk to other women, they're interested, or they've gone through it, but there is something that you can do. It's not a huge big deal. That's one of my topics. You see how the range, we got dementia. Now we're talking about vaginal dryness, retirement. I have a idea for talking about retirement. I have a segment that I want to call, your grown children are still your children. And no, because when I was younger, when I had my children, I had this idea in my mind that I would have these kids. They would grow up, they'd live their lives, and we all live happily ever after. That just didn't exactly work the way that I thought. it was a very different experience, very different from me being a child and my relationship with, my parents. They're just a range of subjects to discuss that, I myself, I don't have anything that I'm going to discuss that I haven't experienced, that I don't have personal experience with. I don't know if that might change in the future, but like I said, I have a long list of topics now. And every time when I think of one, I just write it down so I don't forget. So that's why I have a long list, because over time I would just put it down. I might be talking to someone and I'll go, hey, that would be a good idea for, a podcast episode. And so I write it down. So
Well, same. I'm looking forward to when you're able to actually share these episodes from your podcast with all of us. Earlier, when you were talking about your first podcast that you're going to release, you mentioned something about being a part of a support group that you attended maybe, I don't know, a couple times a month. So with Spiritual Vision Board Academy, there's also a support group or a monthly meeting that I like to offer all members who have gone or are currently a part of the Spiritual Vision Board Academy. It's monthly Q&A. What are your thoughts about that sense of community and how it has helped you to manifest your goal and create your spiritual vision board?
well, I think that for everyone, it's probably going to be a little bit different as far as what they would get out of that, because you can only get out of it what you kind of put into it. So it's like going to my support group. If I didn't talk, if I just sat there and listened to other people's stories, I probably would not have gotten that much out of it. And that particularly, to your point about, a support system, it wasn't only just the people, but I got to learn about services and things that we could get to help outside of the group that were being offered. Because it was a not-for-profit organization that provided a lot of different types of services in the community. So then was also able to learn about that. So I think, for me, the fact that I had technical operating difficulties and I really wasn't sure what to do, and the fact that I mentioned it, see, had I not mentioned it, I would not have, been able to get any ideas on how I could overcome that. The fact that someone cares about the fact that I'm not making the progress that I want to make, is helpful, and it's encouraging. Um, so I think for anyone else, if they're really serious about what they're doing with the spiritual vision board and they are having an issue or whatever, the fact that they can ask a question, and the more that people share their experience, and I know a lot of times people don't always want to share what they're doing or what's going on, but the more people share, the better it is, just because there's someone else that might be going through something very similar to what you're going through. So you're not alone. So maybe the answer or the approach is going to be something that might help you. You just don't know. But you have to be there, and you have to participate. And it's only going to be as good as your participation. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I like what you said at the beginning. You're only going to get out of it what you're willing to put into it. So if you're a willing participant, if you're asking the question, if you're involving yourself in the community, then you're more likely to actually receive the support that you need to have a breakthrough with whatever goal that you're trying to manifest.
Welcome to a sacred journey of transformation. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your deepest dreams taking shape before you. In this spiritual space, we'll help you connect with your divine purpose and manifest the life you're destined to create. Every vision you hold dear is a seed of possibility, waiting to bloom into reality. Let's begin this beautiful journey together.
April, what would you like to leave listeners who or viewers who are watching this video and listening to your testimonial about going through Spiritual Vision Board Academy, being able to at least jumpstart your podcast, which was your initial goal? What final words of wisdom or thought that you would like to share?
So my thoughts would be that being a part of the process, I think really helps you focus and start moving towards it with a bit more purpose. Let's just put it that way. You know, other than that, then you already probably would have done whatever it is that you are spiritual vision boarding about. You've done it already. But the fact that it's something that you want to do that you haven't done, I think that the process in itself really allows you to explore what you're trying to accomplish, why you're trying to accomplish it, and just kind of gives you um, more of a path to the way to get there. So again, like I said, I started to really be more mindful, overall, and more at peace, praying more, a bit more focus. So I think that that part in itself, for me, that's my experience is helpful. So if it's something that you really, really want to accomplish and you're not exactly sure where to start, or you want to have a bit more behind whatever it is that you're doing that can motivate you, I think that it's a good step to kind of get you on your way. And again, and if you like peace and the mantras and all, I think that it's just really an overall great experience that you don't have to be a religious person again mm, to enjoy or to get something out of.
Thank you so much for your time today, April. I certainly appreciate it. And for those of you who are watching us, I want you to take a minute to look into Spiritual Visual Word Academy. As April said, it is a great opportunity for you to get the push, the jump start that you need to learn how to manifest the goal that you're maybe stuck on. And you don't have to be a religious person. You just have to be a person who is purposeful about the goal that you would like to achieve, and you just need help getting started. So I am Dr. Craig, and thank you again, April, for joining us today.
You're very welcome, Dr. Chris. Thank you.